Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. Because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD and working on a product to help people overcome these problems because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
Forget frequently asked questions,
common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius Podcast. My guest today is Sanjeev Goel. We're going to talk about what's called peptide BPC 157. He's also the author of a book called Going Nowhere, Getting Somewhere. So this promises to be a very unusual call. Dr. Goel is on a mission to help people outlive their limits. He's actually known as Canada's longevity doctor to celebrities, athletes, and high performers. And he has over 25 years of medical expertise in various breakthrough areas of biohacking, precision medicine, and brain health. And he's reputed to be 300 years old himself. Welcome, Sanjeev. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for the intro, Richard. Looking forward to the chat.
Excellent. Well, tell me a bit about why, what spurs your interest in longevity?
I was trained as a family doctor for 25 years. And when I've always been kind of a truth seeker looking for the right answers. And to be honest, we only have two major, goals I've realized as humans. One is to live a long and healthy life. That's number one. And the second one is to have a happy life. So when you start to see the suffering that comes from aging and all the chronic diseases, then you realize really if I could spend my time on anything, I just want to help, reduce the pain and suffering that's caused by aging.
Okay. So first of all, what was the premise of your book, Going Nowhere, Getting Somewhere?
Yeah, it's one of those koans, Zen koans. I was maybe 15 years ago, I was in one of those mindfulness retreats, a dyad retreat where you just keep asking questions with a partner. But anyways, this came up to me. It's just the idea that sometimes, we're always seeking answers somewhere else. And I've been that way my whole life, always looking for the right answer. And what I was trying to say with the title is that really the answer is right here. It doesn't necessarily have to go somewhere. And I think we're always, I've even tried myself to kind of not always be so much pushing and striving to achieve more and more. And I think that's what, when you're in a quiet airplane mode, that's when you realize that we don't have to go too far. And the book is really a collection of little, major concepts that I want people to think about. It's not a detailed book. It's really quite a small book if you read it, but I'm hoping it piques the interest of the reader to go and look up these concepts that, have come to me over many years.
Well, what was an example of something interesting in the book that maybe you got really good comments on or feedback on?
I really like the part about for example, there was a study looking at the paradox of choice. I'm not sure if you've had anybody chatting about it, but it was an experiment done by Barry Schwartz, and what he did was that he had people in a grocery store, one with 6 different jars of jam, the other one with 24 different jars of jam, and he found that initially the people, when they did gravitate to 24 jars of jam to look at it, but when people went to the 6 jars of jam stand, they 10 times more likely to purchase. And I think what that meant was that we are, too many choices overwhelm people. They became paralyzed, afraid of making the wrong decision, and he called this choice overload. So, instead of liberating us, excess choice actually makes you more anxious, creates regret and self-doubt. And, that's not intuitive. This idea that, more choice could actually make you unhappier is something that we don't really think about. And I think in our modern day life, we have an endless menu of choices. Like, what should we eat? What biohack should we do? What vitamin should we take? What best advice?
Paradox,
Isn't it? I mean, it's such a powerful concept that sometimes less choice is actually better, because if your brain is to constantly be deciding which choice is better, it's your prefrontal cortex is working very hard, and that's how you get what we call decision fatigue.
Well, I remember years ago, you always read a lot, learn a lot. There's so much to read and so many journals and things. It was overwhelming. Now, with podcasts, videos, things to read, it's like beyond insane. There's no way I'll ever get to like 1/10 of 1% of all of it. Like, even if I was ultra disciplined, it's just beyond overwhelming. I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's impossible to get over all of it. And that goal even becomes harder and harder. And again, for example, with ChatGPT now, so like it's even crazier now.
Yeah.
What's possible. So,
So do you propose a solution, or you just want to highlight the paradoxes that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there are easy solutions. I mean, obviously in this situation, for paradox choice would be like simplicity, that we don't need so many choices, that less choices will give us more time to focus and actually just be content with what we have. And that's going to be more peaceful. It's a hard thing to kind of just put into practice, but I think just knowing it, then I think it might shift our ability to kind of move in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the book. So what is this peptide, the BPC 157?
So, about 4 or 5 years ago, I became very interested in peptides, and peptides are pretty hot these days, but it's really, the word doesn't have it's not a fair word to really, that has any real meaning, because, we have over 100,000 proteins in our body, and a peptide is just a string of amino acids. And these peptides, usually are like signaling molecules. Many of them exist in our body, and some can be produced outside the body, but BPC 157 stands for body protection compound, and it naturally exists in the gastric juice of the human stomach, so it's there to actually help protect the lining of the gut. And so it's that property of it that seems to have this remarkable effect of protection and regeneration when we have it in the body. So it is by far the most popular peptide out there, and people are using it for gut health, because again, it does have this gut protection, but it's also being used for musculoskeletal injuries, tendinitis, ligament injuries, things like that, because it again has a regenerative aspect. It's actually called the Wolverine peptide, because of that property of it.
So what is your goal? Have you administered it in a purified form to combat medical conditions, or how has it been tested and used?
BPC 157 sits in a kind of a grayish zone, and I do have a supplement company that sells capsules of BPC, and there are many other companies out there that do similar things. So I'm just in the space of promoting the benefits of this peptide, and that's it. I think there's lots more science that needs to be still done on these things, on what the potential benefits are. There's many other peptides as well, but this one particularly is really good because it can be absorbed by capsule, whereas many peptides need to be taken by injection to actually have any effect, because they break down in the stomach. They don't even get absorbed.
So what do you have to do to make them break down in the stomach? So they have to be injected?
Yeah, they have to be injected subcutaneously on a daily basis. So, for example, there's a peptide that stimulates your growth hormone. That peptide combo is called CJC ipamorelin, and that you have to take on a potentially daily basis to have the effect that you want to have.
What about mixing that with DMSO to have it transit through the skin so you can rub it on, let's say, like a cream?
I haven't seen that delivery system be successful. There must be a reason. I don't know why that hasn't happened. I know some people are exploring patches, but I haven't seen a topical delivery system yet for these peptides. I did see one for things like glutathione as another example of something that doesn't normally get absorbed by capsule, and there is a topical delivery system for that.
Right. So what happens when this peptide again gets administered, the BP157? What does it do?
Well, basically, it has some effects to accelerate wound and tendon healing, and it appears to upregulate angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels. It enhances nitric oxide signaling. So nitric oxide is the molecule that's helped to vasodilate, bring more blood flow to your body, to your cells and your tissues. It's the way that ED drugs like Viagra and Cialis work, by increasing nitric oxide locally. But nitric oxide is a very important molecule that gets basically decreased as you get older. So those are the kind of the mechanisms for why it seems to have that effect. It also acts as a reducing systemic inflammation through inhibition of COX-2 enzyme.
What does it mean? Inflammation how? I mean, like inflammation that you can feel. What parts of the body does it affect, most strongly?
People are using it for, if you have gut inflammation, for example, many people do, even irritable bowel syndrome may be one, but inflammatory bowel disease potentially could be beneficial. I'm talking mostly about, when you have an injury, or you have, let's say you have tennis elbow, or you have Achilles tendonitis. These are inflammations of the tendon. And what's happening here is that these are generally chronic inflammation issues where it's like it's not enough inflammation for the body to go and resolve the problem. It's actually like a steady amount of slow inflammation, which is not allowing the body to actually heal. So BPC is just pushing it to go, and actually you may have initial slight increase in inflammation, but the idea is actually that, you're going to have actually less inflammation, then you'll have less pain.
I mean, for what conditions was this best for? Was it tried to, just people just with general chronic pain, or like fibromyalgia, or which ones did it respond to best?
I think generally these are musculoskeletal injuries. So I would say it's for, like, let's say a rotator cuff injury, Achilles tendonitis, tennis elbow, these type of tendon type injuries seem to do the best response to BPC 157. And like I said, the second major thing that people are noticing is in gut health, which makes complete sense. And I've seen a lot of cases again where people are noticing that their irritable bowel syndromes have decreased. So it's it definitely the problem is we don't have a lot of human studies, and so a lot of these are anecdotal response that people are noticing.
Okay. So, I mean, does it embolden you to look for more peptides to help with other conditions? Is this going to become like a specialty for you, or what's it turning into?
I'm quite focused. I run a longevity practice. Peptides is one aspect of it. I wouldn't say it's the whole thing. It's the whole answer. And, I'm very much excited about testing of biologic age testing to look at what's the speed of aging. And there's specific clocks to do that. And I do that for all of my patients, where we look at how fast is the body aging, what's the telomere length, things like that. We can do some pretty good testing. There's a test out there looking at the amount of inflammation, which gives you a score of what's the age of the body according to the amount of inflammation. So these types of things are very interesting because we're still at the stage now of figuring out where people are at, and we don't have complete answers on how to reverse it. Though you're seeing, like with people, like Brian Johnson, whose speed of aging is at 0.5. He just cracked the 0.5 barrier. So there is a clock out there called the Dunedin Pace of Aging, and what it does is to develop this clock, they basically followed these people for 50 years, born in New Zealand in 1971, and they were able to then create this clock looking, I think, at 18 different metrics. It gives a pretty reliable measure of how fast is somebody aging. So a number of 1 is considered that you're aging at an average speed for your age. If you're less than 1, for example, I'm a 0.7, so that means I'm aging at 0.7 the rate of the average person for my age. And like I said, Brian Johnson's aging at 0.5, so he's aging at half the speed of the regular person. So just the fact that we have these type of numbers now allow us to go and start thinking about interventions that actually can make a difference. For example, I do another type of treatment in my practice called plasmapheresis. I'm not sure if you had anyone chat about this plasma exchange, but seems to be the most advanced treatment out there right now to reverse aging. And, people are noticing on the clock that their aging has gone down a number of, 5 years after doing a treatment. So it's definitely a pretty exciting treatment because, we don't really have much that can actually reverse aging.
Are you exchanging their plasma en masse, or what does it mean?
Okay, well, how it happens in this machine, this plasmapheresis has been around for 30 years, and it's been used for like autoimmune illnesses like Guillain-Barré and things like that. But what happens in this machine is that from one arm, you take out your blood is going out from one arm into the machine. It separates out the red blood cells from the plasma. The plasma is the clear part of the blood, and it removes that plasma, and that's discarded, and it replaces it with saline and albumin, which is a pretty good proxy for your plasma. And then it combines it with the red blood cells and brings it back into the other arm. Now, generally, what we want to do in a treatment session is about 1.5 to 2 liters of plasma being removed and replaced with this saline and albumin. And what it is, think of it more like an oil change, is because as we're getting older, that plasma has all of the memory of your life, like the cells of all the signaling and all that. All the signaling that's happening between your cells is sitting within your plasma. And so if you change the plasma, your body's plasma reverts back to a youthful state. And so, that is so far.
How does that affect your immunity, though? I mean, are you more likely in the short term to get sick with certain things that you got sick with a long time ago?
I think, within 1 or 2 days, your body produces the plasma, and you don't remove all your plasma, so you still have the ability to fight off infections and all that. I haven't heard of any concern about plasma exchange, reducing your immunity in the short term.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So that has the effect of what? When you test the person, the biological age appears to be 5 years less?
Yeah, it appears to actually drop. Again, this is not a permanent solution. This is likely something that, has a temporary effect, maybe a few months effect. There was a pretty amazing study done on Alzheimer's patients. And what they did was they did plasmapheresis every month for 1 year. And what they found was that moderate Alzheimer's actually stabilized and minor Alzheimer's actually start to reverse. So it does have a body rejuvenation effect. It's not just on the biologic age. Somehow, by bringing the plasma back to a younger state, your body's cells are thinking they're younger and acting younger and sending molecules and communicating with each other like they're younger. Really, this treatment came out of an experiment done about 20 years ago now at Berkeley by a husband-wife team called the Conboys. And what they did was they connected a young mouse and an old mouse, and they found that that old mouse became younger and the younger mouse became older just by connecting the blood supply. And they were, surprised. It was clearly the young mouse started to grow gray hair and get fat and died sooner, and the old mouse started to rejuvenate and look younger and get more muscle and all that. So it was really quite impressive. And then they figured out that there was something within the blood there was old signals and there was young signals that was causing this. And, they figured out that just removing the plasma, it's not even that you need young blood anymore. That isn't the issue. If you can just remove the old blood and let your body rejuvenate by creating new young plasma on its own, that in itself is a rejuvenating effect.
Well, what if you did periodic blood donations like men can do to reduce their iron?
Sure. I think
Is
that
also helping.
There are health benefits from doing that. If you think about the volume, that is about 250 cc's. Somebody gives, blood transfusion 250 cc's. Half of that is red blood cells and half is plasma. We're talking minute amounts compared to like a 1/10 the amount or 1/20th the amount of what's happening with the plasma exchange.
Oh, that much of the very, very significant percentage of it's being replaced.
Yeah, like you have in your body, we have about 6 liters of blood, which means there's about 3 liters of red blood cells and 3 liters of plasma. And we're saying that we're going to remove about 2 liters of plasma. So you kind of have to there's kind of like a sweet spot that you have to hit this certain amount of plasma replacement to kind of have a rejuvenating effect. There probably are benefits from just doing regular blood donations because you're producing new blood, which is younger. But, I don't think there's strong enough evidence of what that is and, how often it needs to be done.
Do you offer the plasmapheresis and how often should people get it?
Yeah, I do offer it here in Toronto. We don't have an exact thinking about what is the ideal time frame. I normally tell people every 3 months. I myself have done 9 treatments myself. My biologic age has dropped 10 years. So, I'm the believer of doing it every 3 months or so. But
How do you feel after doing it? First time versus multiple times?
Oh, you just Like you could just go and ride a bike and play a soccer game right after. There's nothing that you notice in that minute. You might have a deeper sleep the next few days. You might feel more relaxed, but I don't think there's anything you can necessarily notice like that, because these are very slow processes of aging. It's not like we can notice ourselves getting older day by day. It's kind of imperceptible. Yeah, I think after a few months you might say, oh yeah, I'd be feeling pretty good. I may have less aches and pains, but unless you have already an existing issue going on, it's kind of hard to see what's actually happening.
I mean, you're probably one of the rare people that's done it many times. How do you feel after all those times? Do you feel like an aggregate, like most of the time you just feel better than you used to, or what's your experience?
Well, again, it's so we don't have like an ability to go and do a proper experiment to say what would happen, where would I have been when I hadn't done it. But I can just tell you by looking at my biologic age, I am 10 years younger than what I used to be. I'm still very good health, almost 55 years old, and 17% body fat, relatively good health. I'm still playing soccer and keep myself active. So it's kind of hard to exactly say. Maybe that would have happened without it, but it's not just my experience. Like there are studies that show that in humans that people have benefits from this type of treatment, and that is the treatment that Brian Johnson is doing, by the way. Like these are treatments that are being done in multiple longevity clinics in the U.S.
Yeah, he's doing like everything in the kitchen sink.
He's doing many things, but the plasma freeze is probably one of the few things that has some evidence behind it.
Have you met him in person and spoke with him?
No, I haven't had a chance to do that. No, I haven't.
It'll be interesting to see, like, what is is it apparent when you meet with him and talk to him, besides him being like very, very pale and vampire looking, how he's doing?
Right. Yeah, I'd be curious about what's happening. Obviously, there are some interesting things that he talks about that are not exactly what everyone out there is saying. For example, the food he's advocating is not exactly a carnivore diet. Though there are probably lots of benefits to having a low carb diet. His diet is not that. It seems like it's much more of a Mediterranean whole food. Yeah. So, this is interesting. He's obviously done a lot of research and figured out that's the best way to slow down aging. Slowing down aging may be very different than being in optimal condition, like right this moment. Like, I think they're two competing forces. Like, it's not always that what's best for longevity is best for how you feel right now.
I watched a study of the calorie restricted people. To the point where they were like really tired and cold all the time, but they had estimated they would live a lot longer, but it's kind of a miserable existence,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, is that there's a balance. There's a balance between these interventions of what makes life enjoyable and worth it. So, I like to talk about, these principles of cycles of growth and autophagy. That's important, try to understand that we're constantly in a growth and decay cycles, and being in harmony with our rhythms. I think it's another huge concept that I want people to be thinking about. And the third concept I normally talk about is hormesis, the idea that, just constantly stressing your body without killing it is going to make you stronger. And those things I think that's like right to our cellular biology. Those concepts are there. And
So do you have like a combined program for people that come to you for longevity? A diet, exercise, plus these adjuvant treatments, like peptides and other things.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is at our practice. And it's a very customized, personalized treatment, because it's very hard, again, you want to meet people where they're at and what they're interested in and what they're willing to put effort on. But yes, I offer all of this type of things, and we're constantly changing because we don't exactly know the full answer. But it's
There's not the experiment where they had the old mouse blood, young blood. The plasma component of it seems to be isolated out. What else is in there? There's probably still a lot more, but what else is unknown and in the blood that it made such a dramatic effect that can't be recreated right now?
Well, I think the plasma, there's only two components, plasma and the red blood cells. Now, the plasma has, hundreds of thousands of molecules, and we may have we don't exactly know what part of the plasma. So instead of going and trying to figure out that exact molecule, like, for example, I think there was one GDF factor that they were saying, oh, this is the factor that brings youth. It was too difficult to go and just try to infuse that one factor. And it's probably interplay of so many factors. So they said, okay, let's just removing the plasma itself is going to have a rejuvenating effect, because it's wholesale change of your plasma back to a youthful composition. Like when they looked at the protein structure of people, young plasma versus old plasma, there's a difference where the amounts of certain types of proteins change over time.
Well, but I mean, but people don't seem to have correlated what are the major levers of keeping someone younger, making them younger.
Yeah, I don't think that.
They're getting there.
Yeah, I don't think we know that exactly. It's too complex. We need it. This is where we're going to need AI to solve this problem, but I think it's beyond the comprehension right now of scientists because there's so much interplay between all these growth factors, cytokines, and signaling molecules that we can't just give one injection to like reverse aging at this time.
Are there a lot of people like Brian Johnson, or very, very few that do everything to try to help themselves?
I suspect there are quite a few people now. I mean, you see, he has a whole Don't Die movement. If you go on the Rejuvenation Olympics where people are competing to have the lowest scores, you'll find there's over 10,000 people who've registered for the challenge to reverse aging. And there's a number of people who are at his score. I think, in the 0.550s or 0.60s, like there's a number of people there. So I think this is, people are very excited because, and even me, I think this is within 10 years, we're going to have people down at, 0.3, 0.2, like that's going to happen. And then, it's not too far off where we can just say, okay, what we call the longevity escape velocity. We're just at that exact point where we can say, okay, you're not aging anymore. You're just staying still. And then that pretty much can open up chance for a much longer life.
Okay. Well, very good. How can people find your clinic? Like, where can you help people? Only United States, only certain states, worldwide?
Yeah, I can help people worldwide. That's not an issue. I do take care of patients across North America already. It's not a problem. People can find me on Instagram. It's Dr. Sanjeev Goel. My website is peakhuman.ca. So peakhuman.ca. My BPC supplements are found at peakhumanlabs.com. And
Human Labs. Okay.
Yeah, the book is Going Nowhere, Getting Somewhere, like found on Amazon.
Okay. Well, very good. Lots of ways for people to follow up depending on their interests. So thanks for coming, Sanjeev. I really appreciate it. And so, keep up the good work and see what you can figure out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.